subject for many, many people. But I'm here today because I was a soldier in Vietnam that served with the 1st Engineers, 1st Infantry. We had extensive use of Agent Orange in the area around An Loc that I was providing support to. And it's from that point on, some almost now 50 years ago, there's been a long journey in recognizing several really important aspects of the use of Agent Orange in Vietnam. Most people don't realize that we had over 20 million gallons of Agent Orange spread both in the air from aircraft and on the ground through trucks. And it was a defoliant effort so that we could expose the enemy and protect our lines of logistics in Vietnam. Our primary mission in Vietnam was to use Agent Orange as a way to prevent infiltration. Well, the effect of that was not known at the time. There was general ignorance across the board on the implications environmentally and on individuals. And what we discovered through subsequent research, and which happened relatively fast, was this was really quite deadly. It had a pervasive effect on the well-being and health of all living things, and of course the vegetation there in Vietnam. The unfortunate part is this particular wound of the war did not leave when they returned. This particular dioxin was insidious in that it enters the body and it can show up at a later time. When we started experiencing the loss of a lot of our fellow warriors from Vietnam, we discovered that there was far more to this than met the eye. That initiated a whole series of studies and examination, both by the Army and by the people in the chemical medical arena. Ultimately, the failure of the government to act precipitated the veterans themselves taking to action to expose the fact that there was a significant issue that needed to be resolved. But that led to a civil suit against the chemical companies, which was largely dismissed in the courts because of the lack of research background doing a direct connection between the use of the dioxins and the impact on the individuals. Well, as the research developed and matured, it became unequivocally obvious that the dioxin would hook itself and have a direct impact on cells production, which really destroyed the immune system and the normal operating systems inside the body. Well, the byproduct of that, of course, was that individuals were dying at a much faster rate, and we finally got the VA to recognize that this was a problem that had to be addressed because of the scope of it was so great. At the end of the day, many veterans like myself went back to Vietnam. We looked at the ground. We understand that there was a major, what they call hot spots, that had to be cleaned up throughout Vietnam. And the impact on not only our soldiers, but on our families and the next generation was severe. The dioxin proved to have an effect on deformities. And that also impacted anyone that went over the hot spots in South Vietnam after we departed. So this was a problem that we all owned as a result of this war. And what today was about was an inability of, frankly, the system to recognize with the Purple Heart the suffering and the stress caused as a result of their actions, our actions in South Vietnam. The Silver Rose grew out of a very emotional and meaningful experience of family members when they lost their loved ones. And they wanted to recognize and comfort those that had sacrificed so immensely over the last 50 years. And many still are suffering and dying as a consequence, as the agent has had a different effect on different individuals. The latest reports that we've seen recently show that we are literally in the hundreds of thousands that are still suffering with that illness and dying as a direct result of having either served or been the child of someone that had served over there and had handicaps when they were born. So you can see it's a sad story, but today's story isn't all sad. It's about pride. It's about a very prideful group of individuals that love their country, believe in the values and the democracy that we collectively fought for while we were in Vietnam, that we sustain our commitment for, even with all these tragedies. There's a clear recognition it's the best country in the world. But we are also equally committed to correcting the issues associated with Agent Orange. What we're advocating is that not so much VA, because VA is restricted by federal policy. The policymakers are politicians, and our legislators have got to recognize this problem and legislate the resources necessary to complete the research and to expand the support not only to the veterans but to their siblings. And we need to remain committed until the orphans are properly cared for in South Vietnam, and those that are handicapped as a result of the toxin, and then here at home, ensuring that we provide appropriate recognition and medical support to anyone impacted by this poisonous toxin.